The tension between the fascists and the communists has been increasing, and war between the two seems imminent. So, the communists have been prototyping a brand new series of tank. And we, at the National Security Intelligence Service, are privy to this information thanks to our agent on the inside. The communists, having watched the fascists blitz through other nations, have begun working on a new type of heavy tank, with the goal being that this tank should be able to go toe-to-toe with anything that the fascists have. The main gun is actually a cannon borrowed from a previous generation of heavy tank. Now, intelligence indicates that this tank is just a stopgap measure until the communists are able to develop something more substantial. But by all appearances, this does seem to be a very capable machine. If the communists then are able to get these mass-produced in time before war with the fascists breaks out, they may stand a very good chance of holding them off. Taking a look at the front of the tank, it's interesting to note the communist use of sloped armor. While many nations are still using a very boxy design, the communists have begun implementing sloped armor. This will make penetrating the tank from the front even more difficult. Unfortunately for the communists, there doesn't appear to be much time left to develop this tank. The fascists have amassed their forces on the border and are ready to invade. But what is even more concerning is the fascists know the location of this research and development facility. The communist engineers are adding the final pieces to their new prototype tank, and not a moment too soon. In the distance, a strange sound can be heard coming towards the research and development facility. The fascists have launched a special attack targeting this location. And for the time being, this tank is the only thing available to help defend. As battles now rage all along the communist-fascist border, the war has come here too. But what are the fascists using to attack this place? What is that strange sound? I have never seen an airplane like that before. What have the fascists developed? I don't believe it. The fascists actually have a working jet fighter. The Allies have been working on aircraft like this, but they are years away from having a usable jet fighter. What else are they working on, or have already developed that we don't know about? We at KSIS need to greatly increase our intelligence on the fascists. The enemy jet makes another pass towards the tank. The tank is desperately trying to shoot the enemy, but I don't know if that's even possible. But maybe they'll get lucky. And they do. The gunner on that communist tank just brought down a fascist jet. But the battle's not over yet. A couple enemy tanks are now pushing this position. Strike that. Only one enemy tank. Okay. The enemy tanks are dealt with. Our communist informant has just transmitted a message letting us know that some of the enemy jet is still intact. So now, before either the communist or the fascists can pick over the debris, we're going to take advantage of the chaos and try and recover one of the enemy's jet engines. Fortunately for us, the communists are too busy fighting the fascists elsewhere. So if we make this quick, we can get in and out before the communists have a chance to respond. I see the debris field to our right, and our informant is standing there with it, helping guide us in. The enemy plane is heavily damaged. However, one of the jet engines is mostly intact. If we are able to recover this, it should provide a huge boost to our own research into jet technology. Or perhaps KSIS could build our own jet aircraft using this captured engine. Ultimately, whatever comes of this situation, it has certainly proved to be an advantageous opportunity for KSIS. Now, after sneaking our way into communist territory, it's time for the hard part. Trying to actually line up our plane and attach a jet engine to the bottom of it. Leon is doing a remarkable job lining the plane up. Then we're going to have to get creative on how we are going to shorten the landing gear just enough that we can grab onto the engine and not destroy anything. First, we will arm the grabbing unit. Then, I'm thinking we will decrease the spring strength on the landing gear. Hopefully that will be enough to lower the airplane. It doesn't seem like it's going to be enough. We will probably have to slightly retract the landing gear and then extend them again in order to grab onto the engine. We might damage something in the process, but I think that's what we're going to have to do, and it works. We have slightly damaged the air intake on the jet, but everything else seems to be intact. I think we can buff that out when we get back to our base. Our informant says that she was able to obtain a video from a Kommunist spy who observed one of the latest fascist projects. She says we are definitely going to want to see this. According to our informant, the video that she has obtained records the prototyping of one of the enemy's latest jet aircraft projects. So when we get back to our base, we are definitely going to want to see that video and look over this engine. It's been a long flight into Communist territory and back, but I want to see that video. This video covers the entire process. Looks like it is starting with the basic fuselage. Nothing looks out of the ordinary at this point. Now the front end looks a little different. What are the fascists doing with this? It looks like some kind of very open cockpit. Oh, this is going to be a big glass cockpit. The pilot in this plane is going to have excellent visibility. I don't think I have ever seen a cockpit like this before. The fascists certainly have some very clever engineers. I wonder, would it be possible to convince some of the fascist engineers to join our side? Maybe if we could have some kind of special operation where we would go in and recover some of these fascist scientists so that they could defect to our side. We could call it something like Operation Paperclip or something. As far as the construction goes, the way the fascists are building their jets seems that they are using conventional technology as far as aircraft designs go. Especially looking at the way the fascists are developing their wings. These look very similar to how wings would look on a standard prop-driven airplane. Although, in the background, I can hear one of the engineers arguing that the wings should be swept further back, but he is being overruled by someone above him. Although those comments might be worth noting for ourselves, perhaps sweeping the wings further back will result in better performance. Anyway, that's just something worth noting as we try to develop our own jet aircraft. This is a pretty substantial main wing. This looks like it's going to be more of a bomber close air support aircraft as opposed to a fighter like we saw earlier. Now, if the fascists are able to mass produce jet bombers, that could be a huge problem for us. The speed that the jet engines provide would mean that our fighters would have a hard time shooting down enemy bombers. This prototype seems to be using two of the same kind of engine that we saw earlier. The markings indicate it is their 003 engine. Now this bomber only has 2 jet engines. For a fighter, that seems to provide a pretty good amount of thrust. But for a bomber, that might not be quite enough if they have a heavy bomb load. I wonder if they will end up making any changes or variations to this vehicle to deal with that thrust issue. Maybe they're having difficulties producing the jet engines and can only afford to put 2 per plane? The plane is being armed with 2 20mm cannons, and it looks like 3 bomb mounts underneath. Although that jet engine issue, if that's true, that might provide some useful targets for our strategic bombing. Oh, this is how they'll deal with the thrust issue on takeoff. They're adding rockets.